Can I just say, I never expected to come into an episode review of Platinum End cheering for NASSE as a character as much as I'm about to, but the way she stood up to this Metropolitan and just was like, hey, I don't really care about humans dying. It really doesn't affect me, but your death, that might give me some great pleasure. I was like, hot damn, this cute angelic character who, I mean, her introduction was already a little demonic. You're probably thinking, man, she's an angel, but she's talking like a demon. But to see how she stood up and really control the situation that, I mean, I don't blame Mirai in the slightest for wanting to do the good thing. He was raised by two loving parents who taught him not to hate, not to kill, just be a good person and find happiness. And he's not out here trying to be God. He's not trying to win a battle royale. He's not trying to become a great entity overseeing the world. He just wants to find happiness, and a little girl crying out in pain is naturally that he would want to protect. And if it wasn't for NASSE coming in and stopping it and basically announcing to the entire crowd to just leave because there's nothing good that could come, yeah, he probably would have ended up dead and Platinum End wouldn't exist anymore. But it's nice how she really stood her ground and de-escalated the situation. The unfortunate matter was, Mirai and the rest were probably betting that he wouldn't kill this girl because it would be very bad images, painted across the entire globe of who used to be perceived as a superhero. Seemingly, even if they can't see the arrows, all these people died around him, and there's only so many times you can, put an arrow in someone, so you're probably not expecting exactly that, or at the very least not as brutal as it was. Like, the deaths and the gruesomeness, it's not really about blood, it's about the lifelessness and how they perfectly capture that kind of post-mortem physique. It's just, I was not expecting it to go that in, but NASSE, I'm honestly really enjoying her character. I thought she was going to be more of a gimmick, I gotta be honest, but 5 episodes into Platinum M, I'm really digging what she has to offer for the story, and how she's the perfect balance for a pretty who started off depressed character wanting to kill himself to now trying to go back to his family life. And the fact that she doesn't even want him necessarily to be God, she just wants him to be happy, I kind of believe what she's selling at this point, which I also never thought I'd say. The thing I really dig about this episode is the new character we got introduced to, because in the middle of the stadium we saw a pitcher get taken. I was like, well, that's going to be no good. Obviously, it's not going to be Metropolitan, but I was expecting someone that would try to kill and then maybe in return would then expose the two's identity. Instead, you have someone who, honestly, I might go as far to say is the character I enjoy the most at face value, or at the very least is the human character I enjoy the most, because I think NASSE and the other angels are probably the most interesting aspect, but in terms of a human character in particular, I mean, Nanato probably is who I love, because from what we've seen, it's all been people who were on death's doorstep trying to kill themselves, depressed people, obviously understandable. But the idea of someone, this beautiful angel coming down to someone who has the worst stage cancer imaginable, is going to die, leaving behind a loving wife, kid, and baby on the way, grants him the ability to become God and give them a happy life. And I love the mentality of this dude. Of course I'm glad Mirai was able to convince him to start his treatment again and that just giving up and dying isn't the right thing, because he has a very noble mindset. The fact that he ended up using the arrows to basically give a couple million dollars to his family that he's going to leave behind, knowing that they'll be financially stable because of that, but also thinking no one should want to be God, no one should be God, and definitely someone like him who would steal is not worthy of being God, and ultimately he's not going to last 999 days, so he knows what's the best thing he can do is find someone who is worthy of being God. And the fact that you have two kids who seemingly are very good, they're not perceived as evil, and the fact of the matter is they don't want to be that kind of high prestigious title, that's the perfect person that you would not only want to team up with, but also hopefully team up with to take down the person who definitely does not deserve the god status, and that is Metropolitan. Though it's interesting because the way his mind works, it's so humble, it's so genuine, and the fact of the matter is, his costume making, right? The idea that he's a fashion designer, the fact that he can make them disguises when they go out, something I really wasn't thinking about, but I'm glad that it's going to be more than just a jacket, a hood, something like that. And the fact that he genuinely feels like a good person and that NASSE saw through that they didn't need to kill him, they didn't need to control him, rather you can keep him as he is. It's a genuine ally I just didn't see coming, and I'm so happy it worked out the way that it did. Though something I've had a common kind of thought process throughout these reviews is that the powers and the way they're exploring a pretty basic system at face value, wings and a couple of arrows, continues to get fleshed out in so many ways with all these different rules and thinking outside the box, like in the case of this episode. Because Metropolitan, we get to see him at school, and the way that he extends the range by attaching a red arrow and a white arrow, and the fact that if he keeps stacking the arrows, he can extend the range of how far he could assassinate or basically shoot to control. Something that's very interesting and I didn't even consider. Like, the number of ways they're taking what should be a pretty basic premise. Here's an arrow to kill, arrow to control, and wings to fly away. Really shouldn't be that complex of a system, or at the very least, maybe that's just because I've seen so many anime that have a similar idea with like a power system or like power scaling, things like that, and they just don't do anything too creative. The fact that Platinum Men's actually continuing to flesh it out, kind of very similar to Death Note in a way, in terms of how the Death Note operated, the do's and don'ts, and how a character like Light figured out ways to be able to rip pieces of pages off, able to write in the Death Note without actually having it. Like, they're finding very creative ways to keep Platinum Men's power system, in terms of its combat and strategy, really, really interesting. And the fact of the matter is, they drop a pretty big bombshell about the idea of, like, what would you do if you had one wish in the world? And the idea of his wish is to bring back the dead. And the fact of the matter is, he lost his sister, who, I mean, that does seem like it is a grave. I don't think it's like some form of stasis or something like that. But the fact that he genuinely seems to care about his sister, as creepy as that situation was, and the fact that he's now giving wings and arrows, or at the very least in terms of the end of the episode, wings to a serial killer who can then use a knife to kill people. Like, yeah, this dude's not good, this dude's evil, but at the very least they gave him a human desire, that being to bring back a loved one who is now deceased, even if he is completely irredeemable. Like, the thing about Platinum End is I truly walked in thinking that it would be a fun show with maybe a character or two that I really liked, but I wasn't expecting Death Note, and I still don't think this is Death Note, don't get me wrong. But it's something that I continue to think is a great show. Like, it's not going to be my anime of the season, it's not going to be my anime of the year, but it's a show that I think it accomplishes what it sets out to do. It's not trying to be too much as of yet, and it's not trying to be too little that it doesn't have depth. The power systems, the world system, the angels, the idea of like angels just being skyrocketed up the ranks or being demoted for unknown reasons. The humanity of a character like Mirai just wanting to be a good person, but kind of tasked at, thinking, does he have to kill someone who's evil? But then it goes against his own teachings and upbringings. The idea of a cancer survivor, just wanting to take care of his family. Someone who's basically a supervillain, but kind of feels believable given the whole concept of it. Hell, they even, it's kind of like a Japan situation with Power Rangers costumes. Like, all those costumes that they're wearing with the Metropolitan and stuff. I mean, there's a pretty popular series. No wonder why everyone can get their hands on them. It feels really well written as of 5 episodes. Things can change, sure. I've heard the second half of the show isn't quite as good. But then again, with cutting and anime original scenes, they really could create this to be a great show through and through. And I'm here for the long haul. Of course, as always, let me know your thoughts and feelings down below, favorite point, and what do you think of the new character we got introduced to? And now the kind of hunt of seeing the other person he's spotted that seemingly is a candidate. Let me know your feelings down below, leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.